I had been smiling for 3 hours straight by the time it happened. Not a performed smile, or not entirely. There was real happiness underneath it, or something I was calling happiness. The warm and slightly disorienting feeling of being at the center of a room full of people who want good things for you. My mother kept touching my arm. Old relatives I saw twice a year were suddenly present and affectionate. Rania looked beautiful across the room in a way that made me feel, periodically, that I had done something right. 3 hours of that. The specific exhaustion of being loved in public. I had stepped toward the back of the hall, near the corridor that led to the kitchen, just to breathe for a moment. Just to be nobody's son and nobody's fiancé for 60 seconds. I had a glass of juice I wasn't drinking, and a loosened collar and the particular piece of a man briefly invisible at his own party. That's when Raina found me. I should say, before anything else, that I liked Raina. She was 23, 4 years younger than Rania, and where her sister moved through rooms with deliberate grace, Raina tended to arrive and depart in a way that left you uncertain whether she'd actually been there. Quiet in a family that wasn't. Funny in the dry, understated way of someone who notices everything and chooses, carefully, what to say about it. She'd been off all evening. I'd clocked it early, the way she sat slightly apart from the family grouping, the way she watched the room rather than participated in it. I'd told myself I'd check on her when things quieted down. Things hadn't quieted down. She found me first. Her eyes were red in the way that means before, not during. She'd cried somewhere private and then composed herself and come to find me, which told me something about how much effort whatever she was about to do had required. She didn't speak. That's the thing I keep returning to. She didn't try to explain, didn't reach for a preamble. She just took my hand, pressed something into it, folded paper, small, warm from being held, and then she turned and moved back into the crowd before I could process what had happened. I said her name once, Raina. She didn't turn around. I stood there holding it, this small folded thing, the noise of the party suddenly very loud and very far away at the same time. I looked down at it. Then I looked up at the room, at my mother talking to Rania's aunt, at the caterers moving between tables, at the soft light and the flowers and the whole architecture of a night designed to mean something. I put the paper in my jacket pocket. I don't know exactly why, some instinct I can't fully explain even now. Rania reached me in under a minute. She'd been across the room. I'd seen her there 20 seconds earlier, and now she was close, moving with the kind of speed that doesn't belong to a party. Her expression was composed but not quite, the way a face looks when the emotion beneath it is moving faster than the control above it. People nearby felt it. The two aunts closest to us went still. A cousin angled slightly away in that polite human reflex of not wanting to witness something. She didn't shout. I want to be accurate about that. Her voice was low and tight, the kind of low that's more final than shouting. What is all this? What did she give you? What is going on between you two? I looked at her. I thought about reaching into my pocket. I thought about unfolding the paper right there in the back corridor of our engagement party, in front of the edges of our families, and reading whatever Raina had written out loud as proof of nothing. I didn't. I said, "This isn't the place." She stared at me for a long moment, searching my face for something, guilt, I suppose, or defensiveness, either of which would have confirmed what she'd already decided. I gave her neither. Not out of calculation, just because I genuinely didn't have them available. She turned and walked away. I finished my juice. I read it at 1:47 in the morning, sitting on the edge of the bed in the hotel room we'd booked separately, a small concession to her mother's sensibilities, still in my dress shirt, jacket folded over the chair. The handwriting was Raina's. I recognized it from a birthday card she'd written 2 years ago that Rania had shown me once, something warm and slightly chaotic. This was different, controlled in the way of someone who has rewritten something many times. I won't set down every word here because some of it belongs to her, to the specific courage it took to write it. But the shape of it was this: there was someone. There had been someone, for a while, in the months before the engagement. A man Rania had known from before me, someone the family approved of in the abstract way families approve of ideas rather than people. It had ended, or Raina believed it had ended. But there had been a conversation she'd overheard 2 weeks ago, a phone call, late, a door not quite closed, that made her uncertain. She wrote, "I don't know what it means now. I only know I couldn't watch tonight, and say nothing. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I think you deserve to know. I'm sorry." The last line, again, "I'm sorry." I folded it. I sat for a while in the way you sit when you don't know which feeling is appropriate, so you wait to find out which one arrives first. What arrived wasn't rage. It wasn't grief, exactly. It was something more like the sensation of a room rearranging its furniture while you're standing in it. Nothing removed, just everything moved slightly. The same contents in an unfamiliar configuration. I thought about 8 months, not looking for proof, not reconstructing evidence, just watching the footage differently. The one weekend she'd said she was visiting a friend I'd never met. The way she'd looked at her phone once, at dinner, with an expression that closed before I could read it. Things I'd translated generously at the time, in the way I was apparently accustomed to doing. I thought about Raina sitting at the edge of the party all evening. What it costs a 23-year-old to walk up to her sister's fiancé and press a confession into his hand. What she'd been carrying, and for how long. I didn't sleep for some time. My father called at 9 the next morning. I want to be precise here, because this matters. I had not called my father. I had not called anyone. I had lain in a hotel bed with the paper on the nightstand and the city going about its business outside, and I had said nothing to no one. He called anyway. Tariq, he said, which is the way he says my name when he's arrived somewhere without me and is waiting. "I mean to ask you something. He been at the party. He been in the back of the room when Rania crossed the floor toward me. He knew what a woman's face looks like when it's moving toward a confrontation," he'd said. He'd been married to my mother for 34 years. He'd also, apparently, spoken to my uncle afterward. My uncle, who had spoken to someone else. He didn't ask me what happened. He asked, "Is there something about this family you didn't know?" Just that. Quiet, specific. The practiced economy of a man who has learned not to waste words on drama. I said, "I think so." He said, "Then take your time." That was all. But the weight of it shifted something. I was no longer a man alone in a hotel room holding a piece of paper. I was a son in a family, and whatever I decided next would be decided with people standing beside me rather than in front of me. That mattered more than I'd have expected. I spoke to Raina 2 days later. She'd texted once, just, "I'm sorry," and I'd replied, "Don't be." "Can we talk?" We met at a coffee place neither of us had chosen for any particular reason. She looked like someone who hadn't slept properly, which I understood. We didn't go over everything. I didn't need details from her, and she didn't seem to have more to offer than what she'd written. We talked in that careful register of two people trying to be honest without being destructive. At one point she said, "She's going to be so angry at me." I said, "She's already angry." At me. Raina looked at me for a moment. Something in her expression. Not quite an apology and not quite relief, but something that lived between them. She said, "I didn't know what else to do." "I know," I said. "I think you did the right thing. I think it was hard, and I think you did it anyway." She nodded. Looked at her coffee. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I don't know yet," I said. Which was true. Ronnie and I spoke on the phone that evening. I had sent a message asking for the call. She answered in a voice that was prepared. She'd been thinking about what to say, I could tell, organizing her position. I didn't accuse. I didn't perform calm as a weapon. I simply said I knew something had happened, that I didn't have all of it, and that I needed her to tell me the truth more than I needed her to protect either of us from it. There was a long silence. And then she began speaking. What she said, and what I felt while she said it, belongs to us. To whatever remains of us, not to this telling. I'll say only that she told me enough, and that enough was more than I'd hoped and less than I'd feared, and that neither of those things simplified what came next. I still have the paper. I don't know why I've kept it. It doesn't serve any purpose. It's not evidence I'll use, not a wound I'm tending. It sits in the inner pocket of my jacket, and sometimes I'm aware of it and sometimes I'm not. The engagement isn't formally over. That's the strange part. We exist in a suspension that doesn't have a name yet. Two people who know too much and not enough, trying to determine whether what we have is worth what it will cost to repair, and whether repair is even the right word for what would need to happen. I don't know the answer. Some mornings I wake up and the shape of the future I'd planned is still there, recognizable, just altered. Other mornings, it's gone entirely and I'm standing in an open space that is frightening, and underneath the frightening, very quiet. Raina texted last week. Nothing significant. A photograph of the dog she'd seen. The caption just, "Thought you could use this." I sent back a thumbs up and then, after a moment, a real reply. I don't know what she is to me now. A person who did something hard because she thought I deserved the truth. I think that's enough to be. I think about who I was at the party. 3 hours of smiling. That particular exhaustion of being loved in public. And I think about the man who stood in a hotel room at 1:47 in the morning reading a small piece of paper, and I'm not sure how much distance exists between them. Not as much as I'd have liked, maybe. More than I'd feared. That's where I am. Somewhere in that distance trying to figure out which direction to walk.